woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous. Woke up feeling dangerous. Woke up feeling dangerous. Woke up feeling dangerous.
Mic check 212, bitch.
What is up, guys? This is DDP here for another edition of Live with DDP. This is the typical slot for Mavs Fast Break, but fear not, the format of Live with DDP is mostly just taking your questions. It's pretty much just an hour of open-ended give and take. So considering most of my viewership is related to Mavericks anyway, it's pretty much Mavericks Fast Break, just with the potential for an every now and then question on a different subject. Be it the Dallas Cowboys, they've had a lot going on, or if it were to be something crazy like wrestling related, whether that be Fastlane tonight or WrestleMania this upcoming month. So plenty to talk about. First in the house, Kent Ketchum. What's up? What's good, Kent? Let's see. So I guess I'll dive straight into Mavericks here for a bit. If you're if you haven't been paying as much attention, and you can be forgiven if that's the case, because this team is not looking very good right now. The Mavericks, since making the trade to send Dennis Smith Jr. for Kristaps Porzingis, obviously there were other pieces involved, but nothing that really pertained to the Mavericks' future beyond this year anyway. Their situation now is that they've lost, I think it's 10 of 14 games since that trade went down, and since the All-Star break. The only win that I can recall is against the Pacers, with that being the Wesley Matthews return game, which I think just got Luka a little bit amped up in its own right. So not a good state for the Mavericks right now. They continue to fall behind, but you know what? It's okay, because as I've said before, this feels more like an organic kind of tanking. You look at it and you say, well, one, this team is having to ask role players like Kleba, like Dorian Finney-Smith, and I would say even Tim Hardaway Jr., you're having to ask them to basically play huge roles. Hardaway, you've started 11 of 12 games, I believe, since he became available to them. And as a result of that, they're not going to have the firepower and ability to win these kind of games, especially not when the Mavericks are also trying to counteract Luka's minutes just a little bit, not just completely run him into the ground. And as a result, this is what you get. And so I'm not too concerned about it, because I know this team, it's not good for the rest of this season, and they've got a lot of work to do in free agency. You know, we talk about them having cap space to go get another max out contract guy. Realistically, they need to find 3 starters. They need to find a new point guard. They need to find a center. And like I said, I'd rather Tim Hardaway Jr. move back to the bench. And I say back to the bench. He's played the bench one game for us, his debut for us. But he's someone that I think would be better suited for the Mavericks coming off the bench. And if that's the case, now you're talking about 3 starters you're having to find replacements for. So the good news is, with every loss, subsequent loss that comes about, of which there have been many, I think the Mavericks have the fewest wins post-All-Star break in the league. It puts them in a situation where, okay, their odds improve a little bit for the lottery. It gives them a better chance at not just keeping their first-round pick for one more year, but potentially getting a pretty good player for that pick. Now, there's also the chance that you wind up with pick 6, which means it goes to Atlanta, and now Atlanta is getting the best possible pick they can get to close out the Luka Doncic trade that they made. It could happen, and if it does, it sucks, but it's not like this team has the firepower to do it. I liked guys like Dorian Finney-Smith. I like Kleba for sure. Those guys just are being too much is being asked of them, and I've remained steadfast in saying I don't think Kleba is a starting center for us. I know some people disagree with me. I love the guy as a player. I just don't think you can ask a starter role of him and expect good, consistent results. So it is what it is on that front. Regarding Tim Hardaway Jr., I pointed out he's been pretty good, actually, in the pick and roll as a primary ball handler this year. In New York, he was actually ranking better than Luka as far as points per possession in those situations. And that all works great. The element of his game that just has not been here since he's joined Dallas has been his three-point shooting. And really, if you want to talk about being a above-average three-point shooter, in today's NBA, you really got to be talking about at least 35, 36% to be considered, not just an okay three-point shooter, but a good or better than good three-point shooter. It has not worked for him since coming to Dallas. I think that he can get there because if you look at how he got his opportunities in Atlanta, his catch-and-shoot opportunities, their offense was better suited to him. In New York, where he spent his first couple of years in the league and then the last couple as well, it has not been offensively a good system for him, but he still found other ways to be effective, as I mentioned, in the pick and roll. So I think Dallas, with time, because again, he's played 12, 13 games since joining the Mavericks. With time, I think Dallas, because of the number of open shots and catch and shoot opportunities they create, I think that he will find his stride in Dallas. He's under contract for 2 more years, so really you're going to have to figure out a way to make it work, at least for a little while, no matter what. So with that being the case, I like him coming off the bench if you can get a guy with him, because even the Mavericks bench, we always talk about Luka creating these opportunities, but even the Mavericks bench has some ability in that regard as well. Before he got hurt, Barea was good at finding guys in that situation. Brunson actually ranks very, very well in that as well this year. That was something I was a little surprised seeing where he kind of rated in that spectrum. I think it was like 33rd. And for context, I think both Luka and, before he got hurt, Barea were in the top 10. So really good. Mavericks, even the second unit can get you those open looks. So maybe Hardaway Jr. will come around a little bit with that. And if he's coming off the bench and he's not having to do as much creating on his own, or just having to play as many minutes, maybe you can find a better balance and role for him, kind of like he had that last year in Atlanta, where I think he shot something like 35.7% from three. That's right around that mark you need. Otherwise, you're going all the way back to his rookie, or if you're looking for a year where percentage-wise his three ball was considered in that good to very good range. Otherwise, he's been largely average to just around, like maybe just a little notch below average on that. And again, that high bar is set somewhere around 33, 34%. Let's see who else we got here. Micker45, what's good? They are tanking. Indeed, they are. Mav Zero, what's up, man? Not often that you're able to jump in an actual live stream in real time. So upset with our Mavs, but I understand the long game. I mean, yeah, it's understandable to be frustrated, but like I said, it's more organic. They made the trade when they made it because they determined the development of Dennis Smith Jr. was not really on par and in keeping with the development they were going to need, or that they were already getting from Luka. So Dennis couldn't keep up with Luka on that. Luka sped up the program where they're thinking, okay, now we can compete, they think, as early as next year. If they just get him a couple more pieces in the offseason with all this cap money that they have and everything. Isaiah Hunt, what's good? Yes, I remember you. With all these pieces and everything they've got, then they'll be able to do something. I think that's fair. And of course, people saying Dallas quit on Dennis, I understand that too, but I also understand the Mavericks wanted Porzingis and made calls on him pretty much his entire career. And if you want to get a good player, you got to be willing to trade a good player. That's what they did. They traded a good prospect. I don't know that he'll ever reach that potential that we envision for him, but it's still something that works as a bargaining chip, as we saw. And Porzingis, I think, fits, especially with Luka, better than Dennis Smith did. So, Glad, what's good? If the Mavs have their pick, do they keep it or trade it? They're going to keep it. I imagine that they're going to keep it. I mean, there's the potential to trade it, but I don't think that's as plausible right now because of the guys that they're interested in. I don't know any that would be at that time also available via trade for that. It could be wrong. It could be wrong, but my gut says that they probably keep it because it gives them another guy that's not crazy expensive and keeps as much cap flexibility as they can have for free agency. Sweet Chariot of Fire. They are quickly tanking, yes, and with every loss, their odds improve. And it's getting to the point now where it's very respectable. I think they're right. I think Washington, and when I say ahead of them, I mean like ahead of them in the loss column, which is what you want as far as improving your odds. I think they're just behind Washington at this point. Washington's just ahead of them. Brunson is our point guard. He's our point guard right now. I don't think he's our point guard for the future. I think he's a very nice backup player, a very nice role player who can give you a little bit of leadership and all that. I love Brunson. I just don't envision him as our point guard moving forward, like our starting point guard. Vucevic could be our center in the near off season. Vucevic is a guy that's been what's the phrase I'm looking for? Tied to Dallas, so to speak, as far as free agency. I've also heard Mark Stein say that that is overstated interest by the Mavericks and that they need more guys with better foot speed and athleticism to pair alongside Luka and Porzingis. Although the idea of a Super Euro team is interesting and it would be a first in the NBA, I don't think, I mean, you never know how things could break, but you're going to be paying basically max dollar to get Vucevic. And Vucevic is a 20-10 All-Star from the East. That's not as... I mean, it's solid. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to undercut the guy at all. But he's not a defensive guy, really. And when you consider other things that the Mavericks can get, you can get 20-10 in various forms. Julius Randle, 20-10 this year. Not an all-star, but 20-10 on the Pelicans. Has increased his three-point shooting range. Now, he's not a 7-footer. He's a little bit of an undersized power forward, but he's a Dallas kid. He's interested in playing for Dallas, and he signed last year a 2-year, $18 million deal with a player option in year 2. Regardless of whether or not he leaves New Orleans, he's opting out because he has way overperformed that contract already, and so he'll get a new deal. I would be very interested in a lower cost addition of him and then keeping the flexibility because, as I said, you got 3 guys in my mind that you got to replace in your starting lineup. If you were to add potentially him, and I'm not saying he's your starter necessarily, but a much cheaper version of a 20-10 guy that you could plug in and that you could keep your flexibility to add a couple other things that you need as well. The main thing is you want to find defenders, athletes, and shooters in whatever form package that you can. That's the best thing you can surround Luka and the rest of this core with. Oh, I know. Oh, comments rolling away from me. When you take out 5, 80% is basically our best units. Barea, Dennis Smith, Wesley, DeAndre, and Barnes. Dark days come after that, I understand. Yeah, definitely. You lost 4 of your 5 starters in basically a 1 week to 10 day span. So it was always going to be like that. Besides Zion, I don't see any players helping the Mavs make the playoffs right away and fit with Luka and KP. I want to keep the pick, but I also want to win. There are other guys that it's not like you plug in. Yeah, there's no one that you plug in and he has a Zion type impact for you. Yeah. But the idea is that you accumulate young talent that you can develop. So if you can still add a guy that can be a solid role player and rotation player for you, and in a couple of years then, as you have to change things up and churn the roster a little bit, he can then be a better player for you, whether that's the other guys from Duke or what have you. There are options there that they should consider. If the Mavs get a top 4 pick, they keep it. But 5, they should trade it, and beyond that, they lose it. Logan Q, what's good? I say if the Mavs can get a top 5 pick, they'll most likely go after an international player. I don't think the draft is that deep. It's not as deep of a draft, and that was part of why they felt so confident in trading this additional number 1 pick for the Luka deal last draft. So it's not as deep, and they didn't anticipate being in this situation. I don't think that they're in a bad situation because now, obviously, with Porzingis, your perception of the team is that it's further ahead now than it would have been had you just had Dennis and Luka and hoped at some point in the next year or so that they could gel together and be a real duo, like a real stud star duo. So they feel better in that regard, but it's a very top-heavy draft. I think there's a few really, really nice players. Obviously, the one potential superstar in Zion. And then beyond that, I think you should have a nice collection of rotation players or role players. Nothing that really blows you away. Nothing that you feel like, oh, well, we can't afford to miss on this guy. Justin, what's up? To be fair, I also just forgot to watch some of the Sundays. Oh, he's talking about the Mavs in general. Sacramento, California. The Kings got Harrison Barnes from Dallas. Was he a good player in Dallas? Asks Justin. Yeah, I mean, he was the consummate pro. I mean, absolutely the kind of guy that you would want to represent your organization, your city, and all of that. I don't have anything as a person to say negatively about Harrison Barnes. I worded that awkwardly. I have nothing negative to say about Harrison Barnes as a person. As far as the amount of money he was making and where he fit in our plans moving forward, I don't think it really fit anymore. I don't think he and Luka worked great together moving forward, and especially with him making $27 million next year, that didn't make sense. I think if you want to have a true contender, he needs to be at the highest, your third best player, if not your fourth. He was able to kind of be that in Golden State and in Dallas. Although he took some strides forward as far as an ISO scorer and things like that, in other areas he decreased every year as far as percentages, points per game, things like that. And I think that was troubling because it felt like he couldn't really go much further in some of this development. And then with the emergence of Luka and the trading for Porzingis, it was like, okay, you're definitely not going to up these numbers now because now you have these two guys here that are going to be the new number one and number two. And now we're talking about paying nearly $30 million a year to our third option, who is a okay third option. I love Harrison as a person. I hope nothing but the best for him. I just don't think the fit worked here. And so I was actually kind of excited about the trade. I like the prospect they got back as well for him. It's just a matter of seeing what they can do and where they go from here. Having the cap flexibility it gave us this summer, I think, is crucial, especially with what Luka's done. I think they'll have a reasonably good chance of attracting a quote-unquote big fish. One steal and one block a game is better than DeAndre was. Who are we talking about in that regard? Cowboys are in on La'el Collins' free agent market. Was there an update on La'el I just missed? Landon Collins market heats up. Redskins, Cowboys, Colts, and Chiefs among teams sparking interest in the Pro Bowl safety. Well, that'll come up in a short bit, I'm sure. Did you say L. Collins? Yeah, L. Collins. For some reason, I read that as La'el Collins. I was like, he's not a free agent. That doesn't make sense at all. They're not extending him yet. Yeah, Landon Collins would be a very nice safety for the Cowboys to add. He's not so much a cover safety. I know he had 5 interceptions as a rookie. He hasn't come close to that since then, but he's a good hard-hitting safety, can play the run very well. Definitely a lot to like there, but I would probably take my bet, depending on money-wise how they differ, on like an Earl Thomas instead still, because I think you need a ball hawk back there. The Dallas secondary doesn't have any ball hawks, and Collins is not so much a ball hawk. Thanks for that call out, though. That was good input on the fly. Marco, what's good? I don't know if and when this would be doable, but Doncic, Porzingis, and Embiid is all you need, in my opinion. Imagine the aerial play, height advantage at all positions. Embiid's not going to be going anywhere from Philadelphia. They can offer him more money. They've got a much better core and team in place. The only way that falls apart is if like the Jimmy Butler thing just blows up to such an unbelievable degree that it's just toxic and they all hate each other and want to get away. And even then, I don't know the current state of his contract. It'd be great to have a player like that, don't get me wrong, but I don't know how plausible I would have to put that at less than 1% plausibility. That's just going off my gut right now. Point guard, Luka. Shooting guard, Hardaway Jr. Small forward, Barrett. Power forward, KP. Center, Nikola. Like I said, Hardaway Jr. I think would be better suited as the sixth man off the bench. Then you have Barrett, I think would be a good draft pick if they got him. Vucevic, I'd like a little more foot speed and defensive prowess from my center. I love his offensive game and what he can give him. I just don't know that that's the perfect pairing. And Luka, while I want Luka running the offense, I don't think he has to be the quote-unquote point guard. I think whether he's a point forward or basically a shooting guard running the offense, I think that's fine. I want a point guard that can play off the ball a little bit and a center who can bring a more defensive edge to this team, because you're already going to have a fair bit of firepower. You need to lock down some defense because Luka's not a stud defender. He's not a terrible defender by any means, but he's not a stud defender. Porzingis, yeah, he averaged his last season he played 2.4 blocks per game, but a lot of that was not because of his foot speed. It was because of his length and athleticism. And that's not like foot speed athleticism. That's like he's quick, he's not fast. And that length being 7'3" is absurd. So I don't think that that's my preferred option to go with another offensive guy and no real defenders. Speaking of Hardaway Jr. on that front, I think the more I've watched Hardaway Jr. defensively, I actually think he's better defensively than I anticipated him being. It's not like he's a great defender, but I think he's certainly respectable, whereas my perception of him previously was that he was more of a defensive sieve. So, I'll see more and see how I feel about that come into the season. But to this point, I feel like I was wrong on that. Victor Bernard King Jr., what's up? Barnes was a ball hog. I mean, he had to run the ISO. That's what he did. He was an ISO player for like 2 years before Luka got here. And so this year there were a lot of stretches where he just trying to be more effective and trying to make an impact, I think just fell into that habit, and it kind of killed the flow of the offense and certainly took the ball out of Luka's hand for extended periods. And that's where that negativity kind of came from. Says, what's up? Really want to see Cam Reddish as a Mav. That'd be nice too. Justin Jackson, yep, that's the prospect I was referring to earlier, the Harrison trade. I like him a lot as a prospect. I think he'll be a good rotation player. Was talking about Vucevic. Gotcha. Okay. Do you admit all experts, including you in the NBA, were wrong before the start of the season, pushing Luka to position 3 or even 4, despite he always saying a 1? Asks Luka. Do I admit I and other people were wrong saying he should be a 3 or a 4, despite him always being a 1? I mean, my point was never to say that he couldn't run the offense. I just said that I didn't think that he was a point guard. So in that part, wrong on that. Not wrong about him being able to run the offense, but wrong on him lining up as the 1. The reason people were saying a 4 is because that's what Rick Carlisle was saying. And you can say the coach was wrong on that, but we locked in large part on that because that's where they slated him. I mean, there's a reason why for All-Star voting, he was listed as a front court player because he played the majority of his rookie year, or at least, before the All-Star break, as a front court player. And so that put him in a different group of guys that he was going up against as far as the voting and all of that. So, in part wrong, I don't think 100% wrong, but if that's what you want to hear, go for it. I'm not one to back down or disagree or contradict. If I'm wrong about something, I own up to that all the time. Chiefs release Justin Houston. I'd be interested in kicking the tires on that for sure. I think he's got plenty left in the tank. That's one of those things too. You see a bunch of those defensive ends who have gotten paid, and it's complicating the market a little bit now, where you see guys like a year or two into their deal suddenly getting cut, or the guys who are hitting the market now, whether it be Lawrence or Jadeveon Clowney, they're getting franchise tagged because teams are hesitant and reluctant to pay a single player $19, $20 plus million per year on a long-term deal. So defensive end market's kind of becoming a cluster F right now in the NFL. He's way better with the ball in his hands. And I agree with that, Luca. I agree that Doncic is way better with the ball in his hands. And that's why I said as a point forward, I love him. And whether they run him as the point guard or the 2 or the 3 or whatever position they want to call him, as long as he's running the offense the majority of the time, I don't care, because position numbers are relatively window dressings in the NBA at this point. The Mavericks, in particular, in recent years, have run several two-point guard lineups, that is. It doesn't matter. It's just how the guys play and how they space the floor, especially with guys and big men stepping out now and being able to shoot threes, and not as much from the mid-range because the NBA has pretty much foregone mid-range jump shots. But that all fills in very nicely to that notion that it's positionless basketball. As long as Luka's the guy with the ball in his hands, they could call him the center for all I care. It doesn't matter to me. As long as he's running the offense most of the time, I'm happy, I'm content. Barrett is Barnes 2.0, not ideal next to Luka in my opinion. Interesting. I'll have to deep dive more on his tape and everything. I've been getting a million things set up here. In the next probably week, I'm going to be resuming a additional show, weekly Cowboys talk and everything. Probably do a lot of talk with Big Game James and all of that as well. I've still been working on this new podcast that, if you guys watched the poll I put out the other day, talked a little bit about what I want to do with it. I'm still weighing on the name. I know the popular one, the leading vote getter, whatever, was the DDP Power Hour. My hesitation there, I wanted to, with that idea, the idea was to have something that was expressed that it was more of a variety type thing, where I didn't just talk one subject. It was just kind of like, I could talk about whatever the interest was, right? Like you have like, the Joe Rogan Experience, and you have all these shows where it's just like, F it. You tune in each show and you never know what the subject's going to be. It could be Mavericks, could be Cowboys, could be film, could be gaming, could be writing, could be WWE or just wrestling in general. Like it just varies. The idea is this is additional content outside of the YouTube channel if you're curious. I am actually very partial to Feeling Dangerous with DDP.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Which is, yes, in reference to my favorite OU player of all time, Baker Mayfield. So that's the one I'm partial to. And DDP Power Hour, the name, even though it kind of expresses the variety nature of it, I don't feel like it does as much, like it's as unique of a name. Like Power Hour is a pretty common title or phrase used around that. And so I kind of like the idea of having something a little more interesting and original, but, you know, it's a balance. Justin Jackson's been stepping up. Karam, yep. Yes, he has. I very much like what I see from him, and I think he could be a very good role player for us, even a guy who in spot situations could step into the starting lineup and, you know, depending on matchups, and make an impact. Rick said it best. His position is on the court. Yes, I agree, Marco. Sweet Cherry to Fire, Dallas Prospect. What defensive center options are realistically available in the offseason? Is Randall unrestricted? Randall has a player option. He's going to opt out because he has way outperformed the $9 million he was slated to make next year. He's not a center. He's a little bit of an undersized power forward, probably 6'9", I want to say. But very good offensive skill set. He can play back to the basket a little bit. He's a 20-10 guy in New Orleans. He's extended his range this season where he can shoot, especially corner threes. Very, very pleased with what I've seen. Anytime he's played Dallas in his NBA career, he's pretty much kicked our ass. And I watched him go up. This was while Anthony Davis was still in the will he, won't he be traded situation. He went up against the, at the time, 3-seeded Thunder in the West, and pretty much by himself wrecked the Thunder, Paul George, an MVP candidate, and Russell Westbrook, and a very good defensive Thunder team. He pretty much went nuts on them and helped New Orleans win despite not having Anthony Davis. So there's a lot there that intrigues me about him. I don't know defensively what his strengths are. And I know there's still some question, obviously, with his size. So I don't know. Last offseason, the Mavericks said they weren't interested in him. He didn't fit the bill for what they wanted. And they cited his lack of range and his size and his defense. I think he's at least making them take a harder look this offseason, assuming he does what I think is probably 98, 99% likely and opts out. But regarding what other defensive centers the market will have, I gotta pull it up and look at it again, but I mean, I would take Boogie defensively probably over Vucevic. Their numbers as far as blocks and things like that are pretty similar, but I think Boogie plays with a little bit more of a mean edge that would work well, and he's got, I think, comparable or even better range. I think he would be good. Now, there's question marks surrounding him and how he would do, how he would fit within the locker room as far as Rick and all of that is concerned, but that's all stuff that you can figure out, because if you're getting him, it's probably on a short-term big money deal anyway, something like a 2 or 3 year deal with a player option. And if you get that, he could fit nicely into this into the framework of the team for the immediate push, and then open things up for you to find another option or develop a guy or whatever. Sign a 1 year deal with the Cowboys. Who are we talking about signing a 1 year deal with the Cowboys? Oh, probably Justin Houston. I mean, he hasn't. If that's a suggestion, I would be interested in that. DDP, who are the 5 players on your board if you could choose the Mavs pick? 5 players. That's a tough one because you got to think about their fit. Obviously, Zion's going to be number 1 on everyone's. I think Barrett is intriguing. I think Reddish is intriguing. I gotta look, man. I gotta look to see what I think about the fit. Like I said, Annie's much more the college basketball guy of the two of us as far as Mavs fast break is considered. My strength is more so related in the NBA itself. And once we get up to the point of the draft, we still got something like how many games left? Like less than 15 now. Once we get right up to the end of the season, then we really start turning on the draft analysis and all of that, then I'll be able to speak more confidently to it. That would be a good pickup with Gregory out. Yeah, I would be very interested in Houston depending on what the market and the contract looks like. I was watching NBA The Jump recently, and still to this day, Paul Pierce pronounces Luka's name wrong. Man, guys do that all the time. It happens all the time. There's a million of those shows that either struggle to say it, or I hate when they say like Doncic. LeBron will say Doncic sometimes, or Doncic. Like they'll put like a T in the middle of it, Doncic. Like Doncic. Just it's not that hard. Of all the names that I've struggled to say for international players over the years, this one is not very difficult. Doncic, yeah, that's another one I've heard a lot. So did the Dallas come clean and confirm the Mavs are tanking? I didn't follow the last games much, just all the scores. I mean, they'll never say they're tanking, and I think it's more organic than that. I think it's more based on their thin on talent right now because they traded 4 of their 5 starters, and they're basically having to way overextend a bunch of role players. Tim Hardaway Jr., who should be at best your 4th option right now, which probably will be the case as early as next year with Porzingis coming back and then at least one more offensive guy, or not offensive, but just one more fairly significant free agent being picked up this summer with that cap space. If he goes to 4, then it'll be fine. Right now he's being asked to be the 2, and his shot's not falling. So it's basically Luka and a bunch of rotation players versus the world, and they're also scaling back Luka a little bit where they can. it's a mess. So it's more organic. It's not like they're like last year where Mark Cuban's out there boldly proclaiming, yeah, race to the bottom, try and get the number 1 pick. Like, it's not that. It's a little more organic, but it is resulting in some bad basketball. Like those back-to-back 30-plus point losses were insane. That was probably the 2 hardest to watch games of Mavericks basketball I can remember in like the last 5 years. Bring back DeAndre Jordan. Nah, I'm good. I don't want DeAndre. I can live with his production slipping a little bit. What I can't live with is the lack of effort. With the lack of defensive effort, at times the lack of interest. He only gets up for like playing his old team, the Clippers, or if they were to play us, he would get up for that, I'm sure. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense for them to go get him. And Innie was kind of talking about this too. I feel like all you're doing at that point is, it's blocking what else you could do. And he talked about, if you can get him at a reasonable deal, then why wouldn't you bring him back? First of all, he's probably going to be pissed off you traded him in the first place and not that interested in coming back. Certainly not at a discount. Second of all, if the problem is effort, then anytime he's on the court, you're not getting what you should out of that position anyway. There are other options. I would rather go Vucevic or something like that before I went to DeAndre Jordan again. Confident that Donnie will pull a rabbit from his hat in free agency, something even better than all of us imagine right now. That would be legit to see. It would. Free agency historically has not been kind to us at all, but maybe things finally change with Luka and KP and the cap space that we have. The difference of this situation versus post-title in those years is night and day. And when people try and put the two together and say that it's the same thing, like, oh, we couldn't do it then, why would we do it now? It's different. You don't have a 34-year-old and plus Dirk and a team that had just blown up a championship roster that suddenly just re-cobbled together with guys like Lamar Odom and Vince Carter and, guys like that, where you're just kind of like, and don't get me wrong, I love Vince Carter. I would actually be interested in bringing him back in a veteran role next year even. Just a guy that can come in and just be a leader and, just a fill-in rotation player. I would love that. But we'll see. I trailed off and lost my train of thought with where I was going with that. But, free agency. It's different. It's completely different. From all the players Dallas traded last month, who do you think should stay if you could pick one? So you're saying of all the guys they traded in the last month, who would I have wanted most to keep out of those players? I mean, my obvious answer would be Dennis Smith Jr. because I think obviously him being his age and his athleticism and as raw of a talent and prospect as he is, there's still a chance he could do something. Barnes, I don't think was going to work offensively within our system with Luka and the like. DeAndre Jordan, I've already talked about my issues with him. Wesley Matthews, very respectable player, a good locker room guy, good veteran, but slipping defensively, getting paid big money. I would have said probably in that scenario, I would have preferred to keep Dennis Smith, but obviously there's no way that deal happens if you do keep Dennis Smith, so I would have done the KP trade 99 times out of 100, and on the 100th time, the only reason I wouldn't push the button is because I would have probably sprained my finger by then and not been able to physically press it. Let's keep the tank going, only have to lose 17 more games. Jeez. That shouldn't be a problem. Let's see. Don Cheech as Cheech and Chong, not rocket science. All right. Tank at full power. Let's lose more games than both Memphis and Washington and try and get Zion, RJ, or Jay Morant. Be interesting to see. Not interested in black holes on offense, and Luka is our point guard. Zion, Reddish, and Bol Bol. I'm not high on Bol Bol, honestly. I think that would create even more problems for the defense. Like our defense, I should clarify. Reddish is the guy I've most heard as an ideal fit for the Mavericks if, in the obvious nature, they don't end up with Zion somehow. Misa, imagine KD joining the Mavs, though. Offensively, yes. It would be absurd to add Kevin Durant, talent-wise, to the Mavericks. It would make them instant contenders if you have KP looking like KP of old, or better potentially. Luka continuing his development, and then Durant. That core with the rest of what they've got as far as pretty solid rotation players, that would be incredible. And for 2 or 3 years, they would be very much contenders, maybe even win 1 or more championships. My problem with Durant is what kind of baggage comes with it. I still think KD is not a great locker room presence. I view it, I know that obviously in Golden State, Green is not, Draymond Green is not exempt from a lot of the issues with the chemistry in that locker room. But I also know Kevin Durant's not one to be loyal. He talks as defiantly and openly as anybody about, doing he's not loyal to a team or to a city or anything like that. And I think he's probably going to go to New York with the Knicks. Golden State's kind of imploding if he doesn't stay. I don't think they implode to the point where they're not a playoff team by any means. I just think that their dynasty window will have effectively closed. Again, dynasty window is not the same as championship window. So if that's the case, then I worry about, okay, what if KD did come here? What kind of influence would he have on a very young and impressionable Luka, on Porzingis, who's also only 23 years old? How would he impact his thought process, his decision making? Cuban said he wanted to keep Luka and Porzingis. Now, this has got to be an exaggeration to some extent, obviously, but he said he wanted to keep them together in Dallas for the next 20 years. If KD comes through here, you might have 3 to 4 years of stellar championship window contention. But I think there's also then a consequence that comes with that, where you might only have 1 or more of those guys for maybe like a 5 or 6 year window, as opposed to 8, 9, 10 years, let alone the 20 Cuban's talking about. So it's like, do you sell your soul on the front end for a chance at 1 or more championships, or do you go for prolonged greatness and a chance to build something without the chemistry problems, without the attitude problems? KD, man, he is belligerent to the media. He claps back at any fan that has so much of a negative word to say about him. I just don't think he's mentally tough. Like on the court, yeah, he's an assassin. I watched him for 9 years in Oklahoma City. I get it. But I also feel like he's not a guy who, outside of basketball, is that mentally tough. And I think it annoys even his own team to some degree, just the way he just gets triggered over all this other outside stuff. Rough Reven, what's up? I know we're tanking, but a win and good Luka game tonight against the Rockets would be nice. Yeah, I mean, tanking is obviously the main thing that benefits the team at this point more than a win, but it's always nice to beat Houston. If you guys haven't already, by the way, take a second, please. If you're interested, like the video. Don't forget to subscribe, ring the notification bell. We're ultimately heading towards like 1,800 subs. So let's keep growing this thing. My opinion on Reddish is, at worst, he is another Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal is legit, so I would be interested. And Bradley Beal is still only like 24 years old, 25 years old, I think. Reddish probably the best fit. Realistic options, says Connor Mitchell. If we get 4 or 5, wouldn't mind. Yeah, definitely. Let me skim through here, get caught up a little bit. DDP, if Luka and KP do really well next year and even make a playoff run, do you think AD could be tempted to join Dallas instead of LA, re-signing with this current team? I don't think there's any way AD stays in New Orleans. I think that ship has sailed. LA seems very, very, very likely that that's where he's going to go. Could he be swayed to come in Dallas? Yeah, but he's also a guy that's really more of a 4, and so you'd have to either adapt KP to play a 5 or Davis, and that's not quite the ideal setup in that regard. So I don't know. Is it possible? Sure. Do I think it's likely? Not especially. Reddish is 6'8", Beal is 6'5". Good clarification. What players want to go to New York and a team that destroys everyone that goes there? I think it's just the perception that they have all this money and that they're blowing up the team so you can build something yourself there. But it's not like you're going in by yourself. It's not like Durant or Kyrie are going to go there alone. They would go together. And so it's like, okay, they're going to have a shot at like Zion, for instance. And then they also get to drag in Kyrie and KD. There you go. That 3-headed monster gives you a serious core to build around. Then you can go from there and you can try and build something. The management and front office is a joke and a train wreck. But you just have to see, man. Historically, the Knicks are the worst team in the NBA winning percentage-wise since 2000. I think it was 01, actually. But since they last went to the NBA Finals, they are a train wreck. Worst team in the league, and it's not even that close. Andrew Bogut would be a nice one-year pickup if he wants to play. We did the Bogut experiment once. It wasn't very good. I'm not that high on Bogut. I agree on the KD baggage issue, plus not a big fan of his character. Talent-wise would be awesome. Yeah, talent-wise, yeah, he's stellar. He's probably the second best player in the world as far as talent, and Golden State has actually taught him how to play defense, which is something he didn't do a whole lot of in OKC for stretches of time. So he got better. Bogut is almost as old as Paul Gasol. I think you're a bit delirious. Tempted, not tampered. Yeah, I get you, Marco. Skimming here just to get caught up. No KD here, no Boogie here either, for that matter. No bad attitudes coming this way. That's probably the safest approach to take. You just got to see how it develops, what they want to do. I think he goes to Boston. I've not heard, if you're talking about Anthony Davis, that's potential of that. They had the best trade package to offer, I thought. But we'll see. That's what you think. 5 minutes ago, DDP said the same thing that I'm saying. He prefers Cousins to Vucevic because of defense. Yeah. Excluding centers, who do the Mavs sign? Excluding centers, who would the Mavericks sign? I've already mentioned Randall, who's a power forward. That would interest me considerably. They need to find a point guard. I don't know off the top of my head what the point guard market looks like right now, but it's not like it's going to be a earth-shattering one. They're going to go after, if he were to opt out, which I don't think he does. He's got a player option, Chris Middleton. They would absolutely go after him, and he would be their perfect ideal scenario. He would be phenomenal next to Luka. But I don't know that that's going to be possible because the Bucks have the best record in the NBA. They have the Greek Freak who's in his mid-20s and is becoming the most dominant player in the league, really. If he ever adds an outside shot, he'll be completely unstoppable as opposed to just almost unstoppable like he already is. And I think in the East, the Bucks will be able to make some real noise. So the odds of Middleton opting out and leaving, not very good. Thanks for the answer and making it clear about the positions. Absolutely. That's the only way Kyrie stays, is if they get Anthony Davis. Yeah, I think that's true. I think Kyrie's probably gone from Boston. We need rebounding at the 5 position more than we need straight defense. Porzingis is a good rim protector. But yeah, that's a great point there, Connor. KP's best season at rebounding is like 7.6, I want to say. He is not a great rebounder despite being 7'3". When your average rebounds per game, for your career, is less than your height, and you're a big man, that's going to raise a red flag for me as far as a substantial starter or piece to build around. But obviously with the rest of his skill set and the belief and promise that he can get better in that area, you're going to take it every time and just try and see what you can do with it. But yes, rebounding, that's the only aspect in which people say, hey, DeAndre Jordan would be great next to KP, wouldn't he? Well, sure, if you had someone that could get you 14 boards a game. The problem with DeAndre is just about everything else, I think. For the right price, Terry Rozier would be a nice point guard. Yes, yes, I absolutely agree on that one. That is someone that I'm interested in for sure. Let's see. Let's see. So the Mavericks got Rockets tonight. We already talked about that earlier. Let me see. I think it's in Houston. Let me confirm here. Load page. Yes. No, just versus Rockets. Game starts at 6, so a couple hours out. I'll be interested to see what they're able to do in this. I don't expect them to win. I would just like to see what they can do as far as being competitive. I want to see, because it's one thing to lose. You want to be competitive and lose if you're tanking. And that's something that for the most part the last 2 years they were actually pretty damn good at. The problem for me is when you have games like those 2 30-point blowouts. Those are the ones that demoralize a team and that can completely shake Luka to his core. And I think Luka's mentally tough for sure. I think he's got that killer mentality, and that's great. I know he is sick to his stomach watching us lose, and he's expressed as much. That's something else Mark Stein talked about, was he hates losing. And so while we've been amped up and excited all year because we're looking at the future and we see, dude, we might have like a real superstar on our hands, a guy that could be, potentially an all-time great, assuming health and longevity and that we keep him on the team. This is phenomenal. So we're all excited as fans, but Luka's looking at it and he's seeing us losing, and he's seeing the frustrations. He was really privately stewing about not getting into the All-Star game. It sounds like that really irritated him. So that's all stuff to look at. And it's the right mentality. It's the right mindset, but you got to be careful then if you're having some games where you're losing by 30 back-to-back games. Because if you think he's upset about some of that other stuff, you lose too many games in blowout fashion, and you're really risking polluting the water a little bit. I don't think he would ever get complacent with it, but you don't want him to get even 2% complacent with it. That's something Dirk talked about recently, his frustration with kind of the modern NBA. He doesn't think guys are as... Let me pull up the actual quote here. But basically, he doesn't think guys are as committed to winning and as hell-bent on winning as they used to be. He thinks they're more interested in like their social media presence, like Twitter and Instagram, follows, likes, all of that. I watched yesterday, I went back and I watched 2006, the second round, Mavericks at Spurs, Game 7. Probably one of the best playoff games I've ever seen. And it was incredible watching it. I mean, the game has changed so much since then. It was almost unrecognizable. Like the physicality, the competitiveness, it's just completely different. It's a different animal. Like you look at today's NBA, and I've kind of talked about this a little bit. I love the NBA. Don't get me wrong. By no means am I bitching and complaining as if I'm not going to watch it. I feel like today's NBA is almost becoming like glorified pickup games. Guys don't have that fire throughout the regular season most of the time. They just kind of rest. They don't fight every game as if they're determined not to lose. And until you get to like really the end of the playoff push, like getting into the playoffs and the playoffs themselves, you don't see a lot of great regular season games. You'll see some, but I remember around that era you would have Dirk and the Mavs clashing with MVP Steve Nash and the Suns, and you'd have like double overtime classics in the regular season, like just a random game in the middle of the regular season. You wouldn't have that now. Now you'd have a chance of one of those guys sitting out or something. And it's just changed the entire environment and atmosphere, the culture of the league. So here's the Dirk quote. He says, "I don't know if it's about winning anymore as it is looking good on Instagram, Twitter, having followers, and having clicks and likes." So Dirk's just talking about the state of today's game and all of that. There was another quote. I don't think I have that one on the quick pull-up here. But similar mentality, just talking about his career with Dallas as he's now moved into. He's now passed Stockton for third most games played all time with 1,505. So now the only guys ahead of him in terms of all-time games played are Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and who is it? It's not Russell. I know this one. Why did I talked about it literally last show, and now it's eluding me. Robert Parrish. Got it. But Dirk talking about the games played and all that and kind of his career with the Mavericks, he's like, I've had a lot of good times here and some bad times, but he was talking about just the game and all that. Like, when we would win in the regular season, when we went as hard as we could to try and win a game, you'd win, you'd have music in the locker room after the fact, and it'd be really good vibes and all that. If you lose, wow. And I call myself a writer. If you lost, you were pissed off, and it irritated you. Like, few things pissed you off more than losing a game. That's not really the thing. You don't hear that in today's NBA. Unless it's a playoff game and you got eliminated, you didn't hear it. You don't hear that. And I think that's just kind of the change in culture of it now, where everyone's got the mindset of, you got to be a good enough team in the regular season and you want to try and build something for sure. But you have so many guys that just try and turn it on late. Like the last couple of years LeBron was in Cleveland, you would see him kind of coast through a lot of the season. Then he'd turn it on for the last stretch, and then Cleveland would make a run all the way to the finals. And, talking the last 2 years, get their ass kicked by Golden State. But to be fair, no one was going to beat Golden State the last 2 years. Other than maybe Houston if Chris Paul hadn't gotten hurt. I digress. But now he comes to the West, and now he can't do that. He can't coast throughout the year. And you had the whole thing with him talking the other day. I'm going to have to turn on the playoff mode earlier this year. Going to have to turn it on a bit early. I don't think the Lakers have won a game since he said that. Set aside his tampering with Anthony Davis and how he kind of polluted his own locker room and basically said, yeah, we'll give you literally anybody, anything to get Davis. I think he killed the chemistry of that locker room. And then you see times where after him talking about playoff mode and turning it on, he's just standing around on defense. And, he might not be 100% healthy, but it's like, dude, if you're gonna write a check like that, you gotta back it up. If you're gonna write that check with your mouth, you gotta back it up. And that's one thing with Jason Terry, who right now I would say is probably my second all-time favorite Maverick, although Luka will surely catch him in the very, very near future. But Jason Terry, man, I'll never forget in the 2011 finals, him talking smack. Miami's leading 2-1 in the series against Dallas. Terry hasn't really had a great game yet. And Jason Terry, knowing LeBron is guarding him, said, yeah, he's gotten the better of me so far, but let's see him chase me around for a full series. Talking about him running around off all these curl screens and things like that. It's like, yeah, he's done well so far against me, but let's see him keep up with me a whole series. Everyone was like, and myself included, was like, dude, why are you poking the bear? Why? LeBron hasn't even been great yet in the finals. Why are you irritating him? Dude, Jason Terry lit LeBron up the rest of those finals. Dallas never lost again. Dallas was down 2-1 and rattled off 3 straight wins with Terry going off, including a Game 6 in which Dirk couldn't buy a bucket to save his life until the final few minutes of the game just to put the icing on the cake. But Jet went off for 27 in the clinching game, which I think was the most points for a sixth man in a closeout game of the finals since Manu Ginobili against the Detroit Pistons in 2005. He also had 27, I want to say, in that game. So Jet's my dude, but Jet always backed up, almost always backed up. Obviously, the championship trophy tattoo he got on his bicep going into the preseason of what ended up being the championship year for the Mavericks. He tried to double dip on that bet as soon as he went to Boston and got another one of those trophies with the little Celtics mascot holding the trophy, and that was bad. That did not work out well for him at all. But still, in Dallas, his track record the last few years especially was he backed it up, and that's commendable. LeBron has not done that at all this year. Let me back up a little bit, take a couple more quick questions, comments, and stuff like that, and then I'll wrap up this episode here. DDP, totally agree. Luka will leave before the end of the contract if Dallas keeps losing in the next 2 seasons. He is too competitive. Yeah, but I don't think it'll come to that. I seriously think Dallas will make a playoff run next year. Not just get into the playoffs. I think they'll at least advance into the second round and be competitive in the second round. And that's without knowing exactly what they're going to build out the rest of this summer. I just think that they're going to be very good moving forward, and it's just riding out this last little bit of things kind of sucking. Dijon, yes, I agree. No way Luka and KP will be on the losing side. That's why Randall would fit next to KP. Great rebounder, inside scoring, good vision for a big. Only defense and rim protector is a bit suspect, but I think he would be my number 1 realistic free agent target. I don't know if he's their number 1 option, but he should definitely be on the short list in my opinion. I would have him in my top 5 options for the Mavericks. And as far as bang for buck, so to speak, unless you're throwing just max money at someone, I would say he's the best value pickup you could get. I'm down for Randall. Let's see. If we pick up Randall and draft Cam, I'll be very happy. I would be thrilled about that too. Luka's loyal. He will stay here for 20 years, says Dijon. 20 years, man. I don't. Dirk's done 21 years. He's considering 1 more year because I think he really does. One, I think he's shown more in the tank in the second half of this season, and I think that's kind of interested him a little bit more. 2, he wants to get back to the playoffs one last time, and next year I think they'll be there. Then, did I already say 2? 3, he wants to play with KP and hasn't had the chance to do that since KP isn't playing at all this season. So I think I look at all of that and say Dirk might go 1 more time. That'll make year 22. No one else did more than 20. Kobe did 20 with the Lakers. Tim Duncan did 19 with the Spurs. Saying Luka will be here for 20 years in today's NBA is almost unfathomable. Loyalty like that, longevity like that, doesn't exist. Now, I think Luka can handle the longevity side. Loyalty to that extent would be nothing short of spectacular. Like if he does that, he will be the last guy to do that. Because I think more and more now what you're going to see is guys moving from team to team at most every 5 to 6 years. Except for the loyal real ones, like Damian Lillard. He recently talked about refusing to just go chase a championship by joining a super team, and him having roots in Portland and being loyal to that organization, to that city. And that's tremendously rare already, let alone what we're going to be looking at 10 years from now in the NBA. Considering how quickly the Mavs traded away their starters, it's safe to assume the Mavs will do anything to keep Luka and KP. Yeah. They've won once since he said that. Yep. Okay, so there you go on LeBron. They've won 1 game since he made that comment. Luka's in his first year. How do you know he's not like Dirk? Oh, that's in a conversation that Jason Terry is the GOAT. So we needed more defensive point guard like Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday would be great, and he can play very well off ball. When the Pelicans upset the Blazers, swept them in the first round last year, they ran a 2-point guard lineup with Rondo and Holiday. And Rondo has to have the ball in his hands to be effective, so Holiday was playing off the ball. Holiday would be great. His problem is the contract. Very big money, overpaying money with him locked in like 3 more years, I want to say. Like he just in the last 2 years signed that max deal. So skill-wise, that's exactly the kind of thing I think you need. Contractually, I don't think it's going to be plausible. And the Pelicans have already said they're not dealing him. They're not losing him and Davis, even though Holiday's frustrated because he said, dude, like 95% of the reason I stayed in New Orleans was because of Anthony Davis, and now he's already leaving. I don't believe we can get Middleton or Brogdon, so Randall and someone like Reddish keeping Dodo and Maxey would be a good offseason in my book. I agree. Quick wing who can defend point guards. Or a quick wing who can defend point guards. There's value in that. I mean, you just have to see how things shake out. I'll eventually do a video specifically detailing who I want Dallas to look at in free agency, and it won't just be based on what I want them to do, but what I think they're going to do based on what they've expressed, like their interest in, the position of need, and it'll be like cross-referenced basically to make a top 5 list or something. Just like I did last year when I talked about front court players. Mara, what's up? Hello, guys. If Luka gets less minutes because of tanking and goes steady the rest of the way, while Trae Young averages 25 and 10 the last couple of statement games wins, will Trae get Rookie of the Year or at least co-Rookie of the Year? No, I don't think that's. I mean, people are frustrating, and I'm not talking about you in general. I'm talking about national media perspective. It's frustrating to me how people are saying, "Oh, this is a real competition, bro." Like Trae just finally got his first triple-double last night. When he went for 49 and people started drooling, it was a quadruple overtime game. He played 20 extra minutes of an NBA game. So, yeah, he went for 49 and 16. That's great. But a quadruple overtime game means 20 extra minutes. That's not something that Luka's obviously had the benefit of at any point this season. So, I look at it and I say, Luka to me, from pretty much the jump this year, has been the guy. And to suggest that because Trae Young has been much better the last few weeks, oh, we have a race now, I don't think it's like a done deal where it's like, yep, over. Luka's in Rookie of the Year, hand him the award now. I don't think that's the case, but people acting like it's like if the finish line is Chia, it's not like saying Luka's here and Trae is here. Like, I think there's a little bit more of a gap than people are expressing. And as far as his minutes being scaled back, it's not like he's dropping to 25 minutes a game. He went from 38 to 42 minutes a game to more like 35. And his numbers have still been strong. So I'm not worried about it. I think Luka's got Rookie of the Year. Tank for Zion. V kills it for the win. Yeah, I mean, they're tanking. They'll give themselves the shot. They've won once since the All-Star break. What are your thoughts on Dwight Howard? He has a player option. I'm not interested in Dwight Howard. Even if it was a 1-year setup, I'm not that interested in Dwight Howard. He's a black hole offensively. Not a good low post scorer. He never really developed a true low post set. And the fact that he's bounced around so ridiculously the last few years like he has tells me everything I need to know about how he's received. I mean, hell, he went and played for his hometown Atlanta Hawks, and the locker room celebrated when he got traded in the offseason. He's not a guy you want to have around. Dirk is amazing, but I really hope he retires. If he does, he does. But if he wants one more burn, I'm going to give him one more burn. I think he's earned that. Trae Young, very funny, worst defensive player in the league. Better than Luka, only in assist and free throw percentage. Yeah, that sounds about right. And he shoots like 31% from 3 on the season, so the thing he's supposed to be best at is very, not even pedestrian. That's below average. Now, I know he's a better shooter than he's indicated with his rookie year, but nah. Let's have an off-tanking game and trim the Harden bush. I like it. Let me see. What are your thoughts? I already answered that one. He is spectacular. He will consider leaving as losing. He doesn't lose. Talking about Luka. Because I'm a Real Madrid fan, I'm familiar with Luka for many years. He is not a total jock like LeBron, but he is not as low-key and chill as Dirk. I love the Mavs. Hope it works out. Luka is more like someone like KP than Dirk. Well, KP already kind of forced his way out of New York, so I don't know. All right, 3 more questions and I got to wrap. Questions or comments, whatever. The service with the vote. Anyone picked him up? Trey over that. Let's see. Dwight Powell is showing some nice chemistry with Luka. Yeah, Powell was really struggling for a while, but he's been playing. He's been one of the few guys I think has really played well for the most part post All-Star break. And I think part of that maybe could be the fact that, around the trade deadline, there was talk of his name was being thrown out there a lot as someone that the Mavericks would trade because he's due, I think, $10 million next year, 10 or 12. And so talking about them trying to shed salary for the free agency period, you heard his name a lot, and maybe that motivated him a little bit. I don't know. But he's been playing well, and he's been playing hard, and a lot of other guys have not been playing well or hard since the All-Star break. I'm afraid that coming to the playoffs, we won't be enough for Luka to stay in Dallas. He is a born winner, and anything else will not satisfy him. I really wish Dallas can add one more three-point shooter. I think they will. Again, it's his rookie year, and they were a lottery team, the 3rd worst record in the NBA last year. So to assume that they would already be back in the playoffs, even with as spectacular as Luka's been this year, I always said was over anticipation, over projection of what Dallas was going to be this year. By the time Luka's 26 or 27, Dallas is not really close to a title. Don't be surprised if he signs elsewhere. If Luka's 26 or 27, meaning you're giving me like 8 years, well, he just turned 20, so give me 6 or 7 years. If Dallas is not close to a title and they've had 6 or 7 years to build around Luka, then yes, I would not blame him one bit for leaving. Again, that's today's NBA. Dirk never would have left the Mavericks. The only way Dirk would have ever considered it would have been if they didn't win in 2011, and then when his contract came due, he took a pay cut that summer. But it was like year 1. No, he took the pay cut going into the championship year. So that next contract, had they not won in 2011, would have been the only time he would have considered it. And even then, I think he would have been reluctant. Feels like the league is trying to force a 2-man race for Rookie of the Year. Yeah, because that's what gives them ratings and it gives them storylines to talk about. Because otherwise, neither team's very good and is giving much to talk about at this point. So it's better if you can manufacture a race that's not as close as they want it to sound. Luka made me interested in basketball and support the Mavs, says Hype Emperor. Great podcast. I look for it every week. English Mavs fan. Appreciate it, man. Salute for sure. Yeah, so we're going to have a lot more content rolling out. I am working on a ton of things right now in addition to the Mavs and Cowboys podcasts and articles I do, both for the Dallas Prospect and Dallas Sports Fanatic. I'm also going to be rolling out my own podcast, which I've referred to. Still working on the name for it. That's going to be rolling out here in the near future. My retrospective series, which if you guys have been subscribed to the channel for at least the last 6 months, you've heard it come up a few times. That has been set up. That is now in the works officially as a collaboration with Dallas Sports Fanatic. And that will be going into actual production soon. If you guys like the stuff I'm doing with like TPN and some of this other stuff, just wait. I'm telling you, this is like a full production setup. And this is my creative vision for sure. So stay on the lookout for that. I've just written the new script and everything, submitted it to Michael Lark at Dallas Sports Fanatic, so we'll iron that out, and then we can start kind of going through some of our casting stuff, start making some calls, figuring out where we want to film some of these scenes and all of that. Be on the lookout for it. This is like the biggest undertaking of a project that I have, and it's not a one-off. It's the first of many. So be on the lookout for that. If you guys don't mind, like the video, subscribe to the channel. There is so much that you can do, even just sharing the videos sharing the channel, recommending it to a friend or something. There's so much we can do to grow this thing. And whether it's ad revenue from YouTube and Google, or it's Patreon or Super Chat, whatever, anything that ever comes in from Dallas Prospect or any of that, I put all of it right back into the content I bring out for you guys. So whether it's the green screen setup, the new lighting, the mics, software I use to edit some of the videos, the new camera I got to start filming some of these more recent videos, all of this has been made possible just with what you guys have supported us with. So appreciate it all. You have no idea how much it means to me and everything, just being able to do this. I'm generally a very quiet, reserved person, and in doing this show and talking with you guys, multiple times a week usually, over the last year and a half has kind of given me a way to find my own voice a little bit. So thank you so much, guys. That's going to do it for the show. Hang tight. We got some great stuff coming out. But above all, remember, every legend was once a prospect. Salute.